Good morning, everyone. Premier will make a few quick remarks, and then we'll take one question from each outlet in the room, and then we'll take questions from media in Newfoundland and Labrador that are attending online.
Well, good morning, everyone, and it's great to be here in Ottawa. This is the first opportunity that I will have to actually meet face-to-face with all the premiers of the country, and I look forward to that today, and I look forward to meeting with the Prime Minister tomorrow and having further discussions with all of the premiers at that time. So I'm here to answer any questions you have.
What is on the agenda for Newfoundland Labrador in these meetings? What kind of things are you going to be talking about? What are your concerns you want to share or give feedback to know?
That's a great question, because what I want to come here today and talk about today and tomorrow is what Newfoundland and Labrador has to offer Canada. So it's not so much about simply coming for asks. It's about coming and talking about nation building. We've heard a lot of discussions around nation building. Well, I'm here this week, these 2 days, to talk about what Newfoundland and Labrador can bring to Canada. When we think about the opportunities we have in our offshore oil opportunities, when we can contribute to how we defend our country. And there are all kinds of things like that, that as we grow our economy, that Newfoundland and Labrador has to offer the country.
Hi, Premier. I'd like to ask you a question about health.
Sure.
Health systems across the country have been struggling. I'm just curious what you're looking for from this new government in terms of support for health, and also, is your province interested in a pharmacare agreement?
Absolutely. Our province would be more than willing to sign up for a pharmacare agreement. Unfortunately, the program was introduced. A number of provinces were able to take advantage of it. I'm not sure why the Liberal government in our province didn't sign up originally, but I'm more than prepared to sign up for it whenever that opportunity comes.
Premier, we saw some degree of disunity with Ontario Premier Doug Ford taking some criticism over the China deal that Mark Carney signed earlier this month. What's your kind of sense? I know this is your first meeting with your other premiers, but what's your sense in terms of the unity in that room as we move forward to the CUSMA renegotiations in the summer?
I don't think we can allow anybody to try to divide us, because that's clearly what's happening a lot. People in other places of the world are trying to divide us as a country. We need to stand together as a country. I support Premier Ford and his concerns for his province, like I do and support all the other premiers and their concerns. But that's where we ought to be. For us right now, the tariffs that have been removed have been somewhat of a help when it comes to our fishery. There's a lot more to do. Crab and lobster were welcome, but we have a lot of other species that are still under tariff.
Good morning, Premier. You just talked about unity. You cannot let anybody threat that unity. In Quebec, there's an election coming at the end of the year. The Parti Québécois Separatist Party is leading in the polls. Do you fear, are you worried that the next leader, if Quebec chooses that leader, will threaten that unity at the Council and in Canada?
I can't predict what will happen in the province of Quebec. I mean, the Quebec people will decide on who represents them in their assembly. And, for me, it's all about working together, because I think when we work together, we are better. And that's what Canada is. It's a federation. So that's what's important. I think when all of us are thriving as a provinces in Canada, we're better as a country. And I look forward to the meetings.
Good morning, Premier. Joanna Smith with The Logic. The federal government in Alberta signed an MOU that waives some of the federal regulations to make room for nation-building projects, particularly a pipeline. Is this something that Newfoundland and Labrador would like to see from Ottawa as well?
I think when we talk about the opportunity, and we've heard the Prime Minister talk about the idea of an energy corridor across country, and I'm absolutely supportive of that, but what I would like to see is an energy corridor that includes hydroelectricity from Newfoundland and Labrador across the country as well.
Ian Bailey, Globe and Mail. Internal trade has been a major issue in past. Are you hoping to see progress at the table in your time in Ottawa? Do you think that more work has to be done to sort of get this up and going? Because it doesn't seem to be.
I think there's a real opportunity there, especially when it comes to a lot of the barriers that have been self-inflicted by ourselves as provinces when it comes to some of the regulations that we all have, that how we can combine those regulations. There's lots of things that can be done quickly.
Hi, Premier. Kyle Duggan from the Canadian Press. Can you give us a sense of what's going to happen for Newfoundland gun owners who own firearms that become illegal on October the 30th?
Well, I've come out against that. There's lots of things I agree with the current government on and the Prime Minister on, but that's not one of them. I think when you have law-abiding citizens that are going to impact, these are not the problem. In my opinion, we need to focus on the real issues of gun control. We need to focus on the real issues of crime. And, for Newfoundland and Labrador, hunting is part of our life. To be able to live off the land is part of our life, and I do not want to see that impeded in any way.
So what will happen to those people?
Well, that's why we're continuing to push forward to say that this shouldn't happen.
Hi, Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News. Thanks for taking our questions. As you know, the CUSMA negotiations are about to begin. Do you believe that this CUSMA deal will still be in place in a year? And what is most important for you, for your industries, to be protected in any new trade negotiation with the United States?
I think it's very important that we continue to have those discussions. What it will look like between now and the end of the year, who knows? It will be different. There's no doubt about it. But I think there's a real opportunity here because it benefits all of us. And that's what's important. So we got a lot of work to do.
Hi, Premier. Stephanie Taylor with the National Post. How would you assess how the Prime Minister is currently navigating the relationship with U.S. President Donald Trump? Are you concerned that his speech at Davos or any other comments or postures he has made could put the CUSMA negotiations, create some hurdles there? We've seen the U.S. administration kind of speak out at times about what the Prime Minister has said, including this tariff deal we got with China. How would you assess how the Prime Minister is handling this?
I support the Prime Minister's comments that he made, and I am truly supportive of the country, and I think the Prime Minister has stood up for Canada. I think all of us as premiers want to stand up for Canada. You know, we talk about Canada true north, strong and free. Let us not allow other people to dictate to us how we govern, and I think the Prime Minister did an excellent job.
Glenn McGregor, City News. Just following up on a colleague's question on the gun buyback. Would police in Newfoundland participate in this program? Are they going to be involved in confiscating the firearms?
We're going to have a discussion with our police forces about that.
Can you update us on the conversation with Quebec about the hydro bill, the hydro deal? Sorry.
We currently have an independent review process in place, and we continue to follow that. Their report is due at the end of April, and I'm not going to prejudge what will come of that, but I will tell you that we have a meeting scheduled with Premier Legault this week while we're here.
Thank you.
Perfect. We'll now proceed to questions from Newfoundland Labrador media. We'll begin with Ben Cleary, NTV News.
Hey, Premier, thanks for this. Thanks, Nathan. I just want to ask from the news about Memorial University selling university properties, including Signal Hill Campus, Johnson Geo Center. Premier, what's your reaction to that, the latest move from Munn?
Well, I think the university is doing exactly what the Auditor General talked about, getting its fiscal house in order. The Board of Regents of Memorial have looked at the opportunities and where some of those opportunities exist, so they have made a decision that they will, they're looking at those possibilities.
Thanks, Premier. I also want to ask about, will you be meeting with Francois Legault, and what are those conversations going to look like around Churchill Falls?
Well, we're going to have a meeting while we're here, but it's too early for me to think about or talk about exactly what we will discuss.
Thank you, Ben. We'll proceed to Richard Duggan, VOCM News.
Hi, and thank you very much, Premier. Just following up on the gun questions that have been raised. You said that you plan to have discussions with our police forces in Newfoundland and Labrador. How soon do you hope to be having those conversations, and what do you think that could look like? Because if those types of items are made illegal, what sort of recourse is there for police forces? How do you plan to tackle that?
Well, that's exactly the discussions that need to happen. I mean, part of what we need to do is to try and keep this moving. I think this is the wrong move to take those guns away from legitimate gun owners. You know, law-abiding citizens aren't the problem here. And so we need to keep that in focus, and we'll continue to work on that.
And just as a follow-up to Ben's question on Memorial University, several of these, these are massive properties that the university is planning to sell off. I mean, do you think that this is the right move on the university's part?
Well, I think the university is doing what it needs to do to get its fiscal house in order. I have said previously that I will not balance the books of the university on the backs of its students. I think the university and the Board of Regents are making prudent decisions and doing cost-benefit analysis and all of those opportunities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We'll now proceed to Maddie Ryan, CBC Newfoundland Labrador.
Thank you, Nathan. Premier, I'm wondering if you will be using the Independent Appointments Commission to pick the next consumer advocate in the province.
Yes, we will.
Okay, thank you. And just to follow up, considering the situation with MUN today, do you have any update on your promise to refund tuitions to students who graduate and work here?
That's something that we're looking and going through the budget process right now.
Thank you, Premier.
Thank you, Maddie. We'll now proceed to Tanya Organ of Bay FM. Tanya? Okay, we'll now proceed to Garrett Berry for CTV News.
Thanks. Premier, you just reiterated that you don't want students to pay a price for balancing the books, but would you not agree if students are losing the opportunity to go to Harlow, for example, that they are, in fact, paying a price?
I think what you have to look at is, as I just alluded to earlier, when you look at the numbers of people, and there's a historical significance to that property, and I'm sure Memorial University is doing their due diligence when they make recommendations like that, and the board of directors are looking at all those aspects.
Thanks. And by MUN's internal estimates, this move will save $3 million or so. That leaves about $20 million of deficit that they have to find some way to make up. Is it still reasonable to expect that they can do so on their own without increased government financial support?
Those are the discussions that I look forward to sitting down with Memorial University and having as we go through the budget process.
Thank you, Garrett. And we'll now proceed to Sarah Smelly from the Canadian Press.
Hi there. I'm just seeking some clarity. So if Newfoundland is not going to participate in the gun buyback program, what do firearms owners do? Like, can they participate on the program on their own? Like, these guns that they own are still going to become illegal on October 30th, and they have an opportunity right now to possibly make some money from turning them in and doing what is required. Where does this leave them?
Well, I think it's we're not going to participate in it, but those are the discussions that will continue to happen. I think what I have said and what I continue to say. I believe this is not the right move by the federal government in relation to this. Whether it can be changed or not remains to be seen. But we will look forward to working with the people of our province of Newfoundland and Labrador to make sure they are impacted as little as possible.
Okay, thank you. And I also wanted to ask you, we found out, we got some information yesterday evening that approximately 45% of the homes that burned down in the Kingston wildfire were uninsured. Those people now need help. They need help rebuilding. They've lost everything. I wonder, how do you feel about that rate of uninsuredness, so to speak, about almost half of the people being uninsured? And will your government look at some kind of initiative to help more people get home insurance?
We've talked, and we're working with the people that have been impacted by those wildfires. We've talked about ways that we can hopefully prevent future wildfires in the future. We've set up a cabinet committee to look at that. But I will say one thing. The people of Conception Bay North have a long road ahead of them, but they will not walk it alone.
But I'm asking specifically about insurance. Almost half did not have insurance, which perhaps
that's all part of how we review and how we have those discussions with people.
Thank you very much to the press in the room and those who joined us online today. We hope you have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. It's an honor to be here as the chair of the Northern Premiers Forum for 2026. Of course, I have my colleagues with me, the newly elected John Main, Premier from Nunavut, and Curry Dixon, the Premier of the Yukon. It's an honor to be here in Ottawa for the Council of the Federation meetings as well as the First Minister's meeting. I look forward to meeting with the Premiers and the Prime Minister, receiving an update about what's happening in the country in each of the jurisdictions and about the trade agreements and the travel that the Prime Minister has been embarking on to help strengthen our ties around the world. For our part, we are going to continue to advocate for the North, for Northern priorities. Of course, in the Northwest Territories, we see the North as being at the centre of Canada's strategic future. We have a significant number of resources that Canada needs, that the world needs in terms of critical minerals, natural gas, but we need support to access those in support of Canada. That's why we're advancing a number of nation-building projects, including the Arctic Economic and Security Corridor, which is a road and port project starting in the Northwest Territories, with the road traveling through one of the most mineral-rich areas in the world, which would unlock significant exploration and development potential, and then terminating on the northwest coast, or on the Arctic coast in the Northwest Passage in the Nunavut side. Another project that we have is the Mackenzie Valley Highway that we're advancing, and that is a road in the western part of the territory that would connect the southern part and the northern part of the territory, and also provide a reliable, all-season ground transportation route for the forward operating location located in Inuvik above the Arctic Circle. Currently, there is a road that goes up there, but it is not generally accessible year-round, and I think for national security purposes, it's important to have that access, as well as to lower the cost of living for our residents and create economic opportunities for them. And of course, that's what we are here for. That's what I'm here for, is to represent the people of the North and ensure that while we have these discussions about nation building and national security, that the people of the North are not forgotten and that they see the benefits of development in the North. And I think those benefits can be realized by all Canadians, given the scale of our resources. So with that, I'll hand it over to, I believe, Premier Dixon is speaking next, and then we'll have Premier Main, and then we'll be open for questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Premier. It's a pleasure to be here from the Yukon. The only thing I would say to add to what Premier Simpson has said is that we are tremendously excited about the opportunity that presents itself in the Canadian North today. We see for the first time in a long time a federal government that is paying attention to the North, that has expressed a keen interest in the development of the North, and appears, at least so far, to be willing to invest in the North. We see a tremendous opportunity of alignment between the priorities of the federal government, as expressed by the Prime Minister, and our government in the government of Yukon. Priorities that include the development of critical minerals, the proper investment in the Canadian military in the North, and of course, as Premier Simpson alluded to, a number of nation-building projects that we think will benefit the territories as well. So we are very excited by the opportunity that presents itself right now. We are looking forward to ensuring that we are well aligned with the federal government and their priorities, and we look forward to working with the Government of Canada and the three territories to ensure that those priorities reflect the needs of the Canadian North. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Good morning. And so coming from Nunavut, we're also very excited and seized with the energy that's in Ottawa as of late in terms of the focus on the Arctic and all the talk about Arctic security and sovereignty. Coming from Nunavut, what we're aiming for, or the message that we are sharing, meeting with many different ministers over the course of this week. I have my entire cabinet here. Our message is that Arctic security and sovereignty cannot be one-dimensional. It needs to be holistic, and it needs to be balanced. We can't have state-of-the-art military technology flying in the face of communities that are impoverished and in need of basic infrastructure for drinking water, for housing, energy security. These are the types of things that need to be considered in terms of Arctic security and sovereignty, and we are encouraged so far with the conversations that we've had with different ministers. I'm encouraged by the conversation I had with the Prime Minister yesterday in terms of the receptiveness to our message and to our desire to see things done in a balanced manner. So look forward to the meetings this week, and look forward to working with my Premier colleagues, and thank Premier Simpson for his leadership as chair of the Northern Premiers.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. We can now go to questions.
Good morning, Premiers. Thank you so much. Just to follow up on what all three of you said about the energy with regards to focus in the Arctic and investment in the Arctic. Last week, the Premier of Manitoba tweeted out that when it comes to Canada's sovereignty in the Arctic, think Churchill. Very much, obviously, a play to try and get investment for what I presume to be the Churchill port. And so I'm curious, with all this energy and focus for investment in the Arctic, are you guys worried that there's lines being blurred with regards to what is Arctic infrastructure, particularly when you have premiers from provinces south of 60 pitching Arctic development as being projects in their own provinces? And all three of you can answer if you applies to all three.
Okay, so In terms of Manitoba and Churchill, in terms of Nunavut's Kivalliq region, they are our neighbors and they're our partners in terms of economic development as well as transport. So in terms of their interests with the Port of Churchill, we see them as being synergistic in terms of it's not necessarily one thing or the other, but development at the Port of Churchill should benefit Nunavut in terms of providing links up to our territory. As you know, Kivalliq Hydrofiber Link is a very exciting Inuit-led project. It's not the government of Nunavut's project, but it's one that we support, which would see a hydroelectric transmission line run up into Nunavut. And if it was built, it would be our first link to the rest of Canada. We currently are not linked to southern Canada in any way. No roads, no power lines. So in terms of developing the north, you know, we recognize, or I recognize, that we need partners, and we view province of Manitoba as a partner in what we're trying to do in Nunavut. But I'll hand it over to my colleagues.
Thank you. I want to see all of the jurisdictions in Canada do well. I want to support everyone in the Federation. But that being said, we need to recognize that the territories are not provinces. Provinces have larger populations. They have you know, corporate bodies in them that all of this helps them raise revenue, tax revenue. We don't have that luxury. Essentially, if we want new infrastructure, we want new programming, we're dependent on the federal government. And so when the federal government starts rolling out Arctic programs, it really needs to look to the north. I think that Canada is an Arctic nation, and you look in Manitoba, Quebec, Ontario, there's portions there that could rightly be called Arctic. But the fact is, the need is in the territory, the need is in the Northwest Territories, the Yukon and Nunavut, and that's where our focus is, ensuring that those lines don't get blurred, and monies that are carved out for the north actually come to the north where it's most needed.
So do you think the lines are being a little bit blurred, though?
So I've been having conversations with federal ministers, and this is the message that we are delivering, is that the north is you know, the territories. Not to say we don't need development in the northern parts of the provinces, but we're delivering that message clearly, and I can tell that they are hearing that message. I'm anxious to see what rolls out in terms of some of these funds, like the Arctic Infrastructure Fund, and we met with, the three of us actually met with Minister McKinnon today and gave our perspectives on that as well. So I'll hand it over to Premier Dixon.
Well, I would completely agree with what Premier Simpson has said. I mean, I think that it's incumbent on each premier to represent their provincial interests, and that's what you see Premier Canoe doing with regards to the Port of Churchill. But it's incumbent on us, of course, to represent the three territories. And as Premier Simpson noted, there are some profound differences between our capacities in the territories. The way that we can invest is constrained heavily by the financial systems that we operate within. All three territories are capped in the debt that we can take on. That's by the federal government. That's different than the provinces, right? So we need to ensure that there's awareness of that, and that's why we come to these kind of meetings, and that's why we want to meet directly with the federal government so that they understand the perspectives of the territorial governments. And so those differences are profound, but that's why we come down to express our views, and that's why, you know, as Premier Simpson noted, we met with Minister McKinnon earlier today to raise you know, our questions around the Arctic Infrastructure Fund and what that was going to look like. And so we wait to see what the federal government wants to do with that. The details haven't been determined yet, we learned, and so we look forward to learning more about how the federal government will be deploying those investments. But we're eager to see them flow. We just need to know how they're going to work.
Hi, it's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News. This question is for all three of you. Last week in Davos, the Prime Minister said that the U.S.-led world order was dead, and he essentially called on middle powers to band together to fight back against great powers like the United States. This was something the U.S. President didn't seem to like. It seemed to have angered him a bit. I'm wondering what you thought about the Prime Minister's speech and whether you think this new approach for Canada is good for your different territories or if it presents any potential risks, especially with the CUSMA renegotiations happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start, just since I'm here already. Look, I thought the Prime Minister's speech was an excellent one. I thought it was an articulation of the reality that we all face in the world today. And so I thought it was an excellent speech, and I commend him for that. But I mean, what we need to see now is that speech and that position translated into action. And so from our perspective, or at least from my perspective in the Yukon, we want to see that that new approach to the world reflected. And in addition to the new sort of geopolitical positioning, the Prime Minister made a number of comments about some work that he had intended to do here at home, including the development of our economy and the development of the Canadian North, investment in the military, and so on. Those are great commitments and ones that we support very much. We need to see them translated into action now. And so we look forward to working with the federal government to understand how that action is going to work. And I'll just say specifically, in the case of the Yukon, we have a very large border with Alaska. We're very close with our friends in Alaska. And despite the turbulent times that we see between Canada and the United States and the geopolitical tensions that exist around, it's incumbent on us as good neighbors to maintain those relationships. In a few weeks, I'll be hosting the Arctic Winter Games in Whitehorse. And we expect a delegation from Alaska, a delegation from Greenland, and a delegation from the three territories, of course. So those games are an excellent celebration of our northern culture and brings together those regions that, despite the geopolitical tensions that exist out there, we can still come together and enjoy and celebrate sport and our shared northern culture.
Sure, yeah, I fully support the Prime Minister's comments. As a subnational government, we really do look to the federal government for that type of leadership. And what the Prime Minister laid out, that plan will necessarily benefit the North. He talked about the need to ensure that we aren't reliant on other powers, that we can defend ourselves to the extent that we can, and that means strengthening security in the Arctic, and that's hard security, and that's going to mean investments on the ground in infrastructure, in community infrastructure, as well as military infrastructure, and boots on the ground. So I'm, based on that, as well as the conversations I've been having with the federal government, I fully expect that we're going to see significant investments in the North. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I think, as the Premier Simpson mentioned, we are a subnational government. We rely on our federal government to provide the leadership on the foreign stage. And listening to the Prime Minister's speech, you know, it was a proud moment for me as a Canadian. It really, I believe, you know, it was an amazing speech. And he really said some things in that speech that needed to be said. And one of the things that I took away from it was that it's not just a moment of change that we're in, that things have already changed and that we need to move forward into a new future with a different understanding of what that's going to look like. And in terms of the Arctic, I think it's going to need to be sustained effort and sustained investments if we're going to see changes to things like human health outcomes, if we're going to see changes in terms of economic well-being of households. So it's the need for that sustained effort and investments in actual action on the ground, like my colleague mentioned, that I think we're all looking for next following that speech.
Great. I'll just note that we'll start with Premier May, that he has a hard stop just in a moment, and we'll take two more questions to the other premiers.
Hi, Premiers. Lisa Mayer, CBC National News. As you meet with your colleagues from other provinces this week and the Prime Minister, how do you balance the Team Canada United approach with ensuring that tariffs don't increase the day-to-day cost of living for people in your territories where it's already such a high cost of living?
Well, I think, you know, coming from Nunavut, we're always looking for opportunities to point out the incredibly high cost of living that our residents are dealing with. And in terms of tariffs and discussions around tariffs, we're very different from our southern neighbors in that we don't have a huge manufacturing base, but it's a cost of living where we see the potential negative impacts to our residents. And so, yes, Team Canada, but make sure that the North is recognized for its uniqueness. And there are ways that the federal government can recognize Northerners. For example, the recently announced essentials and groceries rebate. There are ways that the federal government could recognize that our groceries in Nunavut are 2 to 3 to 4 times more expensive than they are in southern Canada, and we've been putting forward suggestions so that that could be recognized and that our residents do get supports they deserve.
Yeah, and so I don't think we need to balance the Team Canada approach with anything. I think Team Canada has to remain strong. When we're facing external threats, the last thing we need to do is be arguing amongst ourselves, arguing among provinces and territories. And despite the differences across the country in terms of political stripes, economic situations, when we're at that table, we speak about what we agree on, and what we agree on is a strong and sovereign Canada. And when we come out of that meeting, we have a united message, and I've seen that every single time for the past year, and I'm confident that that's going to continue. Thank you.
Antoine Trepanier, La Presse. Premier Simpson, good morning. You're the Premier that worked most closely with François Legault, the Premier of Quebec, who's leaving his job in a couple of weeks. I was wondering maybe if you can tell us the contribution of François Legault in these meetings, in the Council, but also how do you see the possibility to see a separatist party take power in Quebec at the end of the year?
Thank you for that, Francois has been a strong voice at the table, the Council of the Federation, and I won't get into any Quebec politics or any positions that they're taking, but I will say that he's very accomplished. He speaks his mind. He speaks on behalf of Quebecers, but also Canadians. And for me personally, it's been an honor to watch him and learn from him over the past 2 years. He really is a force. When he enters a room, you know that he's there, and he attracts that type of attention because he has that ability to lead. And so I really appreciate that leadership. I've only known Council of the Federation with all the premiers present. I know that previously there were times when Quebec was not at that table, and to me we're missing something. We're missing something huge in Canada. Quebec is such a vital part of the country, especially when we talk about things like buying Canadian. When I go look for products now, Canadian products, I'm often finding they're from Quebec. They're often from Quebec. So we need to ensure that Canada remains strong, and I'm hopeful that that continues going forward. Thanks.
This will be your last question.
Hi, Premier. It's Joanna Smith with The Logic. Just on this framework of a deal that President Trump apparently worked out with NATO, I realize many of us are still waiting for details, but wanted to know if you have had or are expecting to have conversations or information from federal officials on what that might mean for Arctic security in your territories.
So that's what I expect to hear at these meetings coming up over the next couple days, and so I don't really have much to say on that one right now, but yeah, thank you. Sorry.
I had one question for Premier Maine. I'm Neha Bamel from the Natsiak News. When you meet with Prime Minister Carney, or maybe in your conversations yesterday, do you expect a concrete commitment to increase or maybe expand funding for the non-insured health benefits? And if that doesn't work, do you plan to put that commitment to Ottawa in terms of them taking over administration?
No, that's an excellent question. So non-insured health benefits is a long-standing program that Nunavut has administered since we were created as a territory. And, speaking as finance minister, it's simply unsustainable, the way that the program is being handled. The funding allocations through the program are insufficient. And so we do have opportunities. We have had opportunities to put across our messaging on that particular issue. If there's more money put on the table, then I could see us continuing to administer the program. But if the funding continues to fall short, then as it has in past years, recent years, then we're increasingly moving towards options like handing back part of the program to the federal government. And I know our colleagues in the Northwest Territories have similar issues with that program, so we're not standing alone on this one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
How's everyone doing? Anybody got any questions?
Yeah. You don't have a statement? Just put right to question.
No, I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, Lisa Mayer from CBC National News. Nova Scotia came out with a bit of a win after the Prime Minister's trip to China with some reprieve on tariffs on seafood. How do you balance that with now the President Trump response to putting, a potential 100% tariff on everything in Canada?
Yeah. Well, look, there's lots of moving parts to these things. I guess first off, what I would say is I'm really proud and pleased with the work the Prime Minister is doing to travel around the world and put Canada back in the discussion and really open up the doors for the premiers to give us some space to promote the opportunities that we have. So in Nova Scotia's case, incredible opportunities in energy, offshore wind, onshore gas, offshore oil. So these are incredible opportunities, and I feel like what the Prime Minister is doing is giving us space to talk about those things. But certainly there are lots of moving parts to these discussions, and the relationship with the United States is incredibly important. So I know that in any negotiation, there's on both sides, there's some people that are kind of out front with more bluster. We're certainly seeing that, particularly out of the United States right now, but I'm hopeful that below that there are real and significant discussions happening and taking place, and I'm looking forward to kind of hearing from the Prime Minister on the status of those, because that negotiation is really important, but so are those other relationships around the world.
Hi, Premier Hurston. Mark Rimes with the Toronto Star. Can I just ask you about the rising threat of separatism both in Alberta and Quebec, where there is a party leading the polls that wants to have a referendum? What do you just make about that, especially in the current moment that we're in?
I mean, the strength of Canada is our diversity and our size, and we want that unity across the country. So we're hopeful that we can navigate through those situations. We have to recognize that there are people with grievances, and accepting those grievances and trying to work through them is really important. But I'm on Team Canada, and I love this country, and I believe in this country, and I like this country the way it is. So I'm hopeful that we'll get through this.
Thank you. And on another subject, just with Pierre Poilievre having a leadership review this weekend, what threshold, what percentage of approval do you think he needs to get to stay on? And do you think he should be staying on as leader of the federal Conservatives?
It's not something that I've been focused on. I mean, I won't be attending the convention. I'm not a member of the federal party, so I've kind of been focused on my Nova Scotia priorities. Thank you. I think I had some short exchange with him, but nothing meaningful. But I wish him well in what he's trying to do. It's important for our democracy that we have a strong opposition. So I'm hopeful about what he does. It's just not. I'm focused on Nova Scotia.
Ian Bailey, Globe and Mail. Further on the sovereignty, Premier Ford in the last hour said a EQ win would be a disaster. Do you share that view?
I like the country the way it is, and those that are trying to dismantle it or break it up, or I'm not on their side. So it would be, I think breaking up Canada would be a disaster, and I hope we don't get there.
And on free trade, do you think the premiers can do more, should do more, and need to do more on breaking down trade barriers? This was a big issue when current Prime Minister came in. Do you think they need to do more on this time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously in Nova Scotia, we've kind of removed everything. I know some of my colleagues have as well, but it's proving to be a bit like whack-a-mole. Like you think you're there, and then all of a sudden something else pops up, and we're seeing that in Nova Scotia. I know some of my colleagues at the Premier's table are as well. But we need to be. We're one country. We need to be able to trade freely and let that market decide. So I still think there's a little bit of protectionism in certain areas. We need to get over that, and we need to have free trade in Canada. So that'll be a discussion today as well, and I think my position is well known on that, and it hasn't changed. Thank you.
Hi, Dizzy Sanchi with the Hill Times. I'd like to focus on health care. First, your province doesn't have a pharmacare agreement. Is your province pursuing one, and would you like to achieve one with the federal government?
Yeah, we'd like to achieve one that works, that works for the long term.
What does that mean, works for the long term?
Well, the number one thing is that we have to look at what the province is providing. We have to look at what federal funding might be available. Does it last? Or is it sunsetted that it'll drop off and put the province in a position that it's not sustainable? So we're wanting to have discussions. We're wanting to get to a place that works for Nova Scotians and works for Canadians.
And when it comes to overall health care, what would you like to see the current new Liberal government help you with to improve health care in your province?
Well, I mean, look, certainly I was elected in 2021 on a mandate of improving access to health care. We've made incredible progress there. Really proud of the progress we've made in Nova Scotia. We know there's more work to be done, and I think a partnership with the federal government through the funding arrangements, but also in funding towards specific innovation, different technologies, different opportunities. In Nova Scotia, we have the PACE clinic. This is a physician's assessment and clinical evaluation for foreign-trained doctors to access to come to Nova Scotia. So instead of what has been 2 years, could be 12 weeks or less. These will be foreign-trained doctors actually in a clinic in Nova Scotia doctoring, but being assessed. So that's a really innovative, that's one kind of awards across North America for its innovation. Those are the types of things that I would like to see the federal government say, that works, That can be good for the country, and we'll help you in funding that. So there are opportunities to work together and continues to take some of the things that have happened in Nova Scotia, take them across the country, and likewise, in other areas, good things have happened too, but help us bring them. So just be a good supportive partner on access to healthcare and funding. I think they want to do that, and we want that as well.
Thank you, Premier. That's all the time we have.
Okay, thanks for watching. Appreciate
One last question. Une petite question en français.
Hello, everyone. I'd just say thank you for coming here today. I'll maybe make 3 short comments before I'd open up to some questions. And really, they are focus on, what I would look for, and I think what Canadians would look for out of some meetings that premiers will have today, and then be joined by the Prime Minister later today and into tomorrow. And the first is, the added opportunity to develop and expand the industries that are creating wealth and creating jobs for Canadians. And we've seen some of that regulatory reform by this federal government, and we would encourage us to work alongside the federal government for that to continue into the future, to make a more positive investment attraction, to be able to allow those industries to expand or be created to create the strong economic environment for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. We've seen the introduction of Bill C-5, the Major Projects Office. All of those are positive steps moving forward. The removal of the consumer carbon tax is helpful as well in the cost of doing business in our nation. Second to that would be what we saw happen just the last couple of weeks in extending and being in market, extending the Canadian reach and being in market in countries around the world. We need to be very much present in countries around the world so that we are able to truly diversify and in particular, I would say, provide any expanded production that we might have, expanded value to countries around the world. And we saw that with the most recent agreement that we came in the restoration of trade with China. I think we'll see some future opportunities in places like India as well. Last but not least, and this is a difficult one given the daily rhetoric that will come, whether it be quite often from the U.S. administration with respect to the relationship with Canada, is our largest trading partner historically. And our greatest ally historically has been the United States of America. And we need to, as leaders, keep our eye on the ball with respect to what we actually want to achieve in any of the negotiations that we have with the United States of America, as they are likely still going to be our largest trading partner, despite the daily challenges and weekly challenges that we have. And those are, I think, evident even as of today. And so, really 3 things, I think, more broadly that I hope today and tomorrow will be the very foundation or the basis for an ongoing discussion with respect to how we are expanding the industries that are creating wealth and creating jobs for Canadians, including those in my home province of Saskatchewan. Second, how we are diversifying our trade by being in market and engaging with countries all around the world. And third, how we are keeping the medium to long-term very important outlook with respect to what our relationship from a trade perspective is going to be with the United States of America. And that's going to be very difficult in the short term with all that we hear and all that we have heard for a number of months now.
Hi, Premier. Boris Proulx, reporter for Le Devoir. When you said keeping eyes on the ball with regards to the relationship with the United States, do you believe that the Mark Carney speech in Davos was too much? Was it appropriate? Was the right tone?
Well, I would say there was points that I would agree with in that speech, and then points that I would likely clarify a bit from a Saskatchewan perspective. The first point is I think Canada does have a great opportunity to be a leader economically in that middle power space. If we are going to determine our destiny and become that leader in that middle power space, it is going to take us making those tough decisions, having those discussions like we'll have today on how we are going to allow that investment to flow, allow those industries that are creating wealth to expand so that we can sell more around the world. And so I think we have a great opportunity to be an economic leader in that middle power space. Part of being a leader in that middle power space for where we are located geographically, who has traditionally been our largest trading partner, who has traditionally, in fairness, been our strongest ally, is finding our way to some type of trade certainty with the United States of America. And that's what I would hope that we are able to discuss, despite
the daily challenges that we see in that relationship. There's certainly ebbs and flows in that relationship, but to keep our eye as provincial and national leaders on where we actually want to get to in the months and years ahead.
As a follow-up, you surely know that the federal Conservatives are gathered in Alberta right now. The leader, Pierre Poilievre, is facing a leadership vote. To your opinion, is he still the man fits for the? Does the man still fit for the job?
I suspect he'll do well. Listen, we're in an environment that is, very much politically charged, not just within our provinces or our nation, but, I think we're seeing that in fairness around the world. And so I don't know if the number will be as high as what, traditionally leaders have expected or received. But I think you'll see a strong, my view would be you'd see a strong mandate for the leadership that Pierre Poilievre has provided. And I'm not going to be able to make it, but I do wish him well. I can't put my finger on a number. As I said, I think all political leaders, regardless of their party or stripe, at leadership reviews, and we all go through them, or largely we all go through them, you're going to see, somewhat lower numbers than maybe what we've traditionally seen. We may see that this weekend, we may not. But I think that is the new normal, just given the environment that we're in today.
Good afternoon. Émilie Bergeron from La Presse Canadienne. In Quebec, there is the possibility, it's likely that the Parti Québécois will be elected according to polls. And, they are pledging to have a third referendum on Quebec's sovereignty in the first year. So if the PQ get elected, Premier Ford just said a while ago that it would be disastrous for Canadian unity. Do you agree with Premier Ford?
Well, let me just begin by just saying a thank you to François Legault in light of his impending resignation, and I thank him for the collaboration around the Council of Federation table. I've served with Premier Legault for probably close to 7 years now, and really appreciated the not only the opportunity I had to work with him, but I think the friendship and fairness that has evolved from that. We are seeing some unrest in various areas of this country. Quebec, Alberta, I see some of it in my home province of Saskatchewan as well. And I would attribute a large portion of that unrest to, some of the lack of a relationship that we've been able to build with the former leader and the former Prime Minister of the Liberal government. We're seeing a change in tone with respect to Prime Minister Carney and how he's collaborating with provinces. We saw the MOU signed in with Alberta for access for our energy products to get to Asian markets. I think that is a significant step forward that likely wouldn't have happened under the previous fella. We're seeing collaboration from our province and a new tone with respect to using some of our international relationships that we've been able to build over the last number of years in China, and I'd say you probably look to India in the not too distant future for some additional opportunities. That was simply very difficult to happen before, and people noticed that with the unconsulted policies that were coming forward. We've seen some of those being backed up or changed by Prime Minister Carney. So I would hope that relationship is improving, whether it be with Quebec or what we see in Saskatchewan or Alberta, because we are I think a nation with an opportunity. And I spoke to this earlier with respect to the question around, are we going to be a leader in that middle power space? Well, I think it's up to us. It really is. We aren't in a position, I think, to, and the last number of years we have felt we were, but we aren't in a position to pick which countries we want to deal with to what degree. We need to be in markets around the world, engaging on how we can, sell the products that we produce in Canada, and that includes the United States of America. And we also have to look at the industries that are creating wealth, not with an eye to choosing which ones may succeed or which ones may not, but having a conversation as to how they can succeed and how we can expand the industries that we have, regardless of what they are or where they are, because we can have an appreciation that all of the industries in Canada are the most sustainable and ethical industries on earth, regardless of which particular sector they're in. And so, I have high hopes for the opportunities that we have as Canadians in positioning ourselves as, to quote the Prime Minister, to position ourselves as with the strongest economy in the G7 as an energy superpower. But there's some decisions for us to make and some discussions for us to have as provincial and federal leaders in order for us to attain that.
On another topic, is your government having discussions with the Carney government on a federal former carbon pricing? What are can you just update us on that file?
No, certainly. And as you know, we've removed all of the carbon taxation from the province of Canada, from the province of Saskatchewan, and we truly are carbon tax-free in Saskatchewan. However, as we move through discussions with respect to the clean fuel standard, how we generate electricity, our plans to move to a nuclear future in Saskatchewan, we do and are asking for a true path in how we can do that with respect to the carbon tax, for example, that's being charged on how we generate electricity today, so that we can actually use those funds rather than being in a taxation account. Use those funds to ensure that Saskatchewan industries and families have affordable, reliable power today and into the future. And so, we do have some discussions that are happening with the federal government on how we can strategically position ourselves as a nuclear power into the future, ensuring all along that we have reliable and affordable electricity and energy for Saskatchewan families, and so that we can continue to attract the industries that are creating those jobs and wealth in our province. And affordable energy is very much part of that discussion.
Hi, Hélène Buzetti, Co-op de l'Information. Just to follow up on the previous question, in the MOU with Alberta, Alberta gets a break on the clean electricity regulation. I was wondering if your province is seeking one as well.
I would say that the clean electricity regulations need to be changed significantly in order for us, as not just in Saskatchewan but across Canada, to one, recognize that we're very different. We're different in how we traditionally have generated electricity, but we're also very different in how we're going to be able to generate electricity into the future. And for us, we don't have a lot of hydro capacity left in Saskatchewan. We've capitalized or built what hydro capacity we have. Our future very much is going to be a nuclear power future in the province. And so we need to be able to transition to that, ensuring that we're utilizing the assets that we have so that our power grid is reliable and affordable today, and give us time to build that nuclear infrastructure that we need in Saskatchewan to provide that affordable, reliable power into the future. And so, that's all part and parcel of, really some of the strategic discussions that we'd be having with the federal government on, where Saskatchewan is today, and committing to where we will be in the future in 2040, 2050, for example.
And I just want to go back to national unity. If I got you correctly, you're saying that Mark Carney is helping national unity, whereas Justin Trudeau was not so much helping. I'm just wondering how, in your mind, it's playing out in your neighbor province of Alberta.
Well, I think the questions around a number of unconsulted laws, regulations, initiatives, and you can name the one, very much have been at the very root of frustrations that I see as I talk to Saskatchewan people and Alberta people, and in fairness, people in other provinces as well. I've seen some positive first steps by Prime Minister Carney, but there's more work to do. Not only for the Prime Minister, but I think in fairness for us as provincial governments as well, to where we can work alongside the Prime Minister, but for the federal government to actually consult with provinces when they're moving forward with regulations that are going to have very real impacts on how we create wealth in our respective areas of Canada. That has not happened over the course of the last 10 years, and we're starting to see some of that happen under Prime Minister Carney. So we're thankful for that, but we need more of it.
Hi, Tessie Sanchi with the Hill Times. I'd like to focus on health care. First, on pharmacare, is your government pursuing an agreement with the federal government on pharmacare? Would you like to see that happen?
Yeah, we've been working with the federal government, and here is, Saskatchewan, I think British Columbia, in fairness, and others are some of the provinces that have the most comprehensive provincial pharmacare program in place today. And so our concerns as we find our way into that agreement is, one, is our Saskatchewan priorities, being respected in that agreement. Second, are we being penalized for having one of the most comprehensive agreements already? And so that's some of the discussions that happen, and some of the reason to the previous question, the reason to the need for collaboration when these federal initiatives are coming out, in particular when they're coming out in areas of what are provincial areas of jurisdiction in the delivery of healthcare. I would say more broadly on healthcare, and this is a discussion that you're going to see in Saskatchewan, I think in a significant way over the next number of months, is we need to have a not a full-scale review, but a review and a conversation with healthcare workers, with patients, on how we are delivering healthcare services today and into the future, given that we have a good number of innovative tools that are available today that simply weren't available in the months and years gone by. We get into virtual healthcare visits, for example. That wasn't available just a few years ago. It certainly is available today. And when you talk to and focus on what Saskatchewan's focus is putting patients first and putting our healthcare workers in a position where they can provide the services that Saskatchewan and Canadian residents expect. We want to talk about how we can use all of the innovative tools that are available today for them to deliver that patient's first level of care that Saskatchewan people expect. So you're going to see more conversation come out of that space from our province of Saskatchewan, and I would say that quite likely you see some of that across Canada as well.
So you're confirming that talks are ongoing on pharmacare? Yes?
Yeah, I haven't talked to our health minister last week or two, but I know we've had discussions for a number of months now with respect to pharmacare.
Great, thank you. I'd just like to follow up on what you said about innovation. You're echoing what Premier Houston said before you, healthcare and innovation and support for that. Is that just more funding from the federal government? What else can the federal government do in helping you improve healthcare delivery?
Well, more funding from the federal government with respect to healthcare would be very welcome. In fact, we feel that to some degree they have a responsibility to increase the share or the proportion of their part of the healthcare funding. It has slipped over irrespective of different stripes of government, the federal share has slipped over the last number of decades. So that would be welcome. Second to that, no, I think what we would look at is there an opportunity for us to use existing funding in a more effective way from a patient's perspective? Is there a way for us to use existing funding to ensure that patients, regardless of where they live in our province, which is different than other provinces, given in our rural and remote communities, to ensure that they have access to a health care provider, to ensure that they have access to a timely surgery? That's what we're looking at. Is there an opportunity for us to use innovation and looking at best practices from other provinces and incorporating them in Saskatchewan on behalf of the patients that are our family members?
One more?
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah, Sergio Vargas with Global News. I'd just like to take you back to energy real quick. We're seeing Premier Eby and Premier Smith sitting down with the Prime Minister today ahead of the larger talks. Top of the agenda is expected to be a pipeline to the West Coast. I guess two things. What are you hoping to hear from the Prime Minister when it comes to energy, not just to the West, but across the country? And two, how do you expect some of these major projects to move forward with still strong opposition from people like the Coastal First Nations and other groups across the country?
Well, I think we as Canadians should shift the conversation when it comes to whether it's the energy industry, the electricity industry, auto industry, whatever that is to not whether or not these projects should move forward, but start to shift that conversation to how can we talk. And credit to Premier Eby, Premier Smith, and the Prime Minister for sitting down and discussing just this. But how can we work together to ensure that these projects can move forward and benefit everyone that is involved? In the case of a pipeline along the way, these are conversations that we're no stranger to in Saskatchewan. For example, much of our uranium industry is in the northern areas of our province. Very much, significant Indigenous communities and Indigenous areas where these mines are operating. What we're seeing in the uranium industry in Saskatchewan is a concerted effort for the last number of decades to involve the Indigenous people that live in the area where the mine is functioning and their community in a positive way in what is happening in the economic spin-offs of that mine site. Investments in recreational centres, jobs. Our uranium industry is running about 50% Indigenous and Northern employment. There's no other industry across Canada that has those kinds of numbers. And so that is, I think, the model that we can take. We can do the forestry industry and so on in Saskatchewan, but that's the model that we can take across Canada. Is we should not be talking about whether or not these projects should be moving forward. We should be talking about how these projects can move forward to ensure in a way that everyone that is involved is going to benefit from the economic opportunities that we have. If we truly are serious about determining our own destiny, becoming the strongest economy in the G7, this is the approach that we have to have. It's not picking industries, but talking about how we develop the industries that we have. Not picking countries, but engaging with the countries to see where there are opportunities for us to market our goods.
A quick follow-up, when it comes to Indigenous consultation, do you feel like those Indigenous leaders should be here and not consulted after talks between premiers and the Prime Minister on these major projects? Should they be in the room from the start?
Well, they will be consulted as a proponent starts to move forward with what a potential project might look like in this case, and that is how it works, whether it's a mine site, that's how it works, irrespective of what the investment potentially could be. And so I think you'll see very active engagement as in this case, as this particular project starts to move forward, and I think you'll see opportunities, and I hope you'll see opportunities for all of those that are involved. And if those opportunities can't be displayed by a proponent that they are a positive and they are actually adding to Canada's ability to, as I say, provide some of the most ethical and sustainable products to the world, in this case to the Asian markets, then likely that project shouldn't go forward. And that's what we have found, is that consultation has to happen, but it doesn't happen immediately at the front end while we're still working towards what a route might be and a proponent might be working towards what the actual project might look like.
Thank you. But Premier, really quickly on gun buyback, what's your message to the Prime Minister on what level of participation you expect in Saskatchewan and the cooperation level of the police there?
I don't see I honestly don't think you'll see much participation across Canada with respect to the gun buyback. We feel it's a flawed program. We've said that from the very beginning. And in specific to Saskatchewan, you need a provincial license in order to start to go out and confiscate firearms in our province. That's currently an unfunded department in the province of Saskatchewan, so there will be no one that will be licensed by the province to go out and confiscate firearms in Saskatchewan. This is a policy that I would strongly encourage the minister to go back to the drawing board and actually have some engagement and collaboration prior to moving forward with anything in this space. It seems to me it's encountering a lot of resistance, not only by police agencies, police forces across the country, but also by Canadians across the country as well, because these are not, the large number, or if not all on the list, are not assault weapons. Those have been banned for a number of years in Canada. They're hunting rifles and they're target shooting rifles, and that's what they are. Thank you, everybody.
Does that contribute to Western alienation? We talk about energy a lot on that question, but how much is policy like the gun?
It all has a factor.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the Council of the Federation. And, as chair, this is my first time chairing, and it's exciting to be here. And I want to thank everyone for taking the time. It's going to be an exciting couple days as we discuss what we're going to bring up with the Prime Minister tomorrow. And I'm sure this will be a very collaborative conversation here today, and I look forward to the outcomes and look forward to our time together. And I want to thank everyone. I know travel across Canada in the winter is always a challenge, so it's great to see everybody here, and hopefully we have a very productive few days. So with that, I think we'll close the doors and we'll start our meeting, and we'll see everyone later on.
All right, everyone. Thank you, members of the media, for coming up. Thank you, folks. Right this way, please.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's been an eventful day here in Ottawa. I've had a number of good meetings with senior officials within the Carney government. I had a meeting with the Public Safety Minister, with Pacific Caucus here of the government, also with the Prime Minister, and now with colleagues from across the country. The discussion with our Prime Minister focused on the important role that British Columbia plays in the vision that the Prime Minister has laid out for the country. It is my firm belief that British Columbia will be the economic engine of our country going forward. For example, in just the last 30 days, we had final investment decision on $3 billion in mine expansions or new mines starting in the province. We expect this to continue, and so a significant part of the discussion was about infrastructure, supporting those communities that are seeing significant employment growth, economic growth, as we move to fulfill the world's needs around critical metals, minerals, energy, and so on. With the Public Safety Minister, we discussed at significant length, and also with the Prime Minister, the issue of extortion. South of the Fraser in Surrey, the focus of the conversation was on making sure that police have all the resources they need to be able to address this issue. In particular, we discussed the call from mayors for an escalation declaration of a state of emergency. Our consensus was to make sure that police are communicating adequately with the community, that they understand the seriousness of this, how profound this is for the community. To that end, the Prime Minister and I and our ministers have agreed that within the next 2 weeks, we will have a meeting of police leadership from Ontario, British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, and National Police at Green Timbers in Surrey, so that all police can be together. We can ensure there are no gaps in sharing information, that all resources that are needed have been delivered, and they can get a handle on this as the national issue that it is. To that end as well, the Prime Minister committed additional RCMP resources to British Columbia to allow us to free up more resources from the CFSEU that is already participating in the task force, but this will allow additional resources. That this is our gang enforcement team in British Columbia, allow those additional resources to join the front lines of the fight against extortion in our province. I also had a trilateral meeting with the Prime Minister and the Premier of Alberta to discuss issues of shared concern between British Columbia, Alberta, and Canada. We talked, of course, about being important trading partners with each other, and that the Western Canadian economies will be driving the path forward for Canada and how we can do that better. We talked about hydrogen, we talked about electrical intertie, and of course, we also talked about pipelines, both the optimization project of TMX, as well as Premier Smith's proposed pipeline across the north of British Columbia. Alberta has committed to keep British Columbia up to date on their progress on this project if they are successful in finding a proponent and as they identify potential sites along the coast that they wish to propose to the federal government for this project. I underline the crucial importance of engaging with First Nations through this process. These are the same First Nations that are supporting in excess of $50 billion worth of energy projects already in British Columbia, and we need their continued support to be able to deliver those projects. LNG Canada Phase 2, Silism's LNG, Cedar LNG, could go on. So the involvement of First Nations was key. I underlined that. Alberta committed to keep us updated going forward. It was a good conversation, and I look forward to hearing more from them. In the meantime, I believe there are opportunities for us to work together on issues related to the shipment of ammonia to the coast, as well as electrical intertie and ensuring that both of our provinces have affordable and accessible electricity at peak times in the market. With that, happy to take any questions that you may have.
Hi, Premier. Lisa Mayer with CBC National News.
Yes.
How close did you come to an agreement in the meeting with Premier Smith and the Prime Minister about what a pipeline could look like through BC, and what are the outstanding issues for your province there?
Yeah, Alberta is not yet at a phase where they have even identified a site where the pipeline is going to exit to. They haven't identified a proponent that will be paying for it. The MOU requires a private proponent. They haven't engaged with First Nations along the coast or received consent related to that. So they are at a very early stage in this project. They've committed to keep us updated as we move forward, and I certainly expect that.
Hi, Premier Eby. Mark Ramsey with the Toronto Star. On another note, I just want to ask you about the federal NDP leadership race. I want to ask you, are you backing anyone in that? And what do you think about Avi Lewis potentially being the leader? He's praised some of your policies, but he's also publicly opposed what you're doing specifically on LNG. What do you think about him being the leader?
Yeah, I'm not endorsing any of the leadership candidates for the federal NDP. I'm sure the members will choose the right candidate.
What about Abby? And not Abby's? Just follow-up discussion.
I'm not endorsing any of the candidates.
Hi, Premier. Just following up on the commitment to keep BC appraised of developments with the Alberta MOU and potential pipeline project, I'm curious, what conversations have you had personally with Danielle Smith between the moment the MOU was signed and today? And also, what's your red line for a potential pipeline project? What's your non-negotiable?
Well, I've been very clear with Premier Smith and with the Prime Minister that I believe that the tanker ban off the coast of British Columbia is there for a reason. And it's been there across multiple governments for a very clear reason. It's an incredibly treacherous stretch of water. A spill of bitumen will decimate the North Coast economy, causing billions of dollars in damage. And there are alternatives to this project that are far more realistic and timely, not the least of which is the optimization of the publicly owned Trans Mountain Pipeline project, a project that the public already owns. It's not operating at capacity and could take significant additional capacity within a short period of time. And so, I understand the Prime Minister and the Premier of Alberta are committed to a new pipeline through British Columbia. I understand their constitutional, the Prime Minister's constitutional authority anyway, with respect to that project. And so they have committed to keep us posted in British Columbia. But I also want to underline that this project is obviously, to the extent that it exists, at a very early stage. We have an open line of communication between our two provinces. Premier Smith knows absolutely my position. I know hers. And we aren't letting that interfere with our ability to work together on areas of shared interest.
Premier Ian Bailey, Globe and Mail. Premier Ford today, earlier today, said that a win for the PQ, the Parti Québécois, in the Quebec election later this year would be a disaster for Canada, given the PQ's commitment to a sovereignty referendum and the need for the country to unite. Several of the other premiers who've come to the podium before you have responded to this. What's your view on this? And how is that view shaped in the sense or in light of sovereignty in Alberta? So how do you balance?
Yeah, for me, for British Columbians, there's really only one path forward for Canadians, and that's through a unified country. All of us working together, respecting each other's differences, and committing to respond to the very real threat that we're facing as a result of the President's policies south of the border. I would encourage, and I have encouraged, all premiers to strongly discourage separatist sentiment in provinces. Now is the time for us all to pull together. And that's the case whether it's Alberta or Quebec or anywhere else. Proposals of Cascadia, of British Columbia joining the West Coast states are always a smile for people, but the true path forward for us is within Canada.
Hélène Buzetti, Les Corps de l'Information. Just want to go back to the pipeline. MP Hogan today said that the West Coast is quite large and the pipeline could exit at many places and not so much in the north where the tanker ban is in place. What do you think of that idea of maybe having a pipeline somewhere else? Would that be a good compromise?
Well, I think, the suggestion illustrates why I'm so challenged by this conversation. British Columbia has 5 LNG projects that are either under construction or are reaching final investment decision within the next year. And so the focus, I believe, of the federal government, if they wish to grow the federal GDP, create opportunities for all Canadians, British Columbians, but not exclusively British Columbians, create federal tax revenues that pay for services across the country. The focus has to be on real projects that are getting delivered, that are going to be reaching final investment decision, privately funded, worth tens of billions of dollars. LNG Canada Phase 2 is the largest private sector investment in Canadian history. That reaches final investment decision this year. We should be all hands on deck delivering those projects, but also responding to the reality that these are projects affecting very small communities that need help with infrastructure and other supports to be able to respond to the massive number of people who are going to be working on these projects from across the country. So the fact that we still don't know the route of this proposed pipeline, that there is no proponent, that there's no money for it, Premier Smith is going to work on it. I respect that, but I am encouraging all of us to stay focused on what we're trying to do here and advance conversations of mutual interest.
Respect, you didn't respond to my colleague's question about A.V. Lewis saying NDPers are baffled by your focus on NLG. Can you just address that, please?
Yes, I'm not supporting any of the candidates within the federal leadership, nor am I denigrating any of them. The members will find the right path forward for our federal party.
Hi, I'm Aya with iPolitics.
Would you consider a pipeline proposal that lifts the oil tanker ban in the Dixon entrance while maintaining it in the Higgins Strait?
Yeah, I have to say, I'm not engaging in negotiations about this pipeline project proposal from Alberta. It is their responsibility. It's their baby. They're bringing it forward. They're proposing it. They're working with the federal government. They're going to do that. They're committing to keep us up to date. They understand my concern, both with respect to our relationship with the First Nations along the coast, whose partnership is crucial for us to deliver tens of billions of dollars of projects for Canadians. And they understand my concerns about the impacts of an oil spill on the North Coast as well. So we'll see what proposals they come forward to in terms of siting or anything else, but obviously they're at a very early stage at best.
Thanks for taking our questions today. You also had a meeting with Prime Minister Carney earlier today.
I did.
I wonder if you can tell us more specifically about what you discussed with the Prime Minister. Was it just about the pipeline and Alberta MOU, or did you also raise support for softwood lumber industry, for example?
Yeah, no, not at all. I discussed an array of topics with the Prime Minister. We discussed the issue of extortion in Surrey, and we have a shared commitment through our ministers to ensure a meeting of police chiefs from key provinces affected by this issue, 4 different provinces, as well as national police at Green Timbers in Surrey within the next 2 weeks. We discussed softwood lumber. Particularly, I identified an opportunity for the federal government to work with the Indian government to lift the tariff that they have on softwood lumber. Currently, there's a 10% tariff for softwood lumber going to India. As part of the trade negotiations that they're having with India, I hope that they're focused on softwood. I also obviously underlined the harm that we're seeing in the softwood sector as a result of the President's policies towards softwood. We talked about FIFA and the remarkable opportunity coming to our province, as well as the need for the federal government to play a key role in security with relation to that major event. The Prime Minister certainly expressed his excitement about that project and is committed to work with us on that. We talked about the huge opportunities in British Columbia in terms of economic development, major projects, whether it's mines or energy projects, port projects, and the crucial need for infrastructure projects that the federal government has underway to support smaller communities that are really impacted by these projects. I also, as a side note, asked him about if he had any updates with respect to Iran. We have a large Iranian population in British Columbia. Their family and friends are feeling huge anxiety. The Prime Minister assured me that he had discussed this issue with the President of the United States and that they were working on providing the best support possible to Iranian Canadians to be able to find out what's happening with their relatives over there. So it was a wide-ranging conversation, and it was I very much appreciate the Prime Minister's time.
Thank you. Sorry. And just shortly, did he also give any kind of update on the CUSMA review? And because he said that they will formally start talks on it in a couple of weeks.
We're hopeful to have an update from the Prime Minister tomorrow on the CUSMA review and the plans the federal government has going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Émilie Bergeron with La Presse Canadienne. I would like to hear you about the tone of the meeting with Premier Smith and Prime Minister Carney. Obviously, you have different views than Premier Smith, so how was the tone? Is there a way to find common ground?
Yeah, I think the tone was very civil in the meeting and borderline friendly. We understand that we have a lot of shared interests between our two provinces. Alberta is our largest trading partner in British Columbia in Confederation. We have lots of overlap with Alberta, lots of shared interests in terms of energy and electricity, and so the goal here is to respect each other's differences and move forward as best as possible. So from my perspective, that's about recognizing certainly the limits of my constitutional authority, which we went to the wall on TMX. I understand that if the Prime Minister and the Premier are committed to do this, that they will do so. But also ensuring that British Columbia's views are heard on this around spill protection and response, around the need for the tanker ban and the why it's there, the significant risk to our economy, and finally, and most crucially, the need for Indigenous consent participation if this is to go ahead, because they are our key partners on literally tens of billions of dollars in projects that are going to employ thousands of Canadians and generate billions in federal revenue.
When the MOU was signed, you were unhappy with the, the level of consultation that you received from Ottawa. Do you think it has improved since then? And do you feel that you are equally consulted compared to Danielle Smith?
Yeah, I think, I've made it clear to the Prime Minister and to Premier Smith that the process was backwards. We should have all been at the table at the beginning. British Columbia was not. I think that was very unfortunate. But we have to move on. Alberta is an important relationship for British Columbia. Relationship with the federal government is crucial. And so we're going to respect our differences on this file and try to find ways to work forward together.
Last question for Sergio. Sergio Vargas, Global News. StatScan is now projecting the province of Alberta will have a higher population than BC by 2037, I believe it is. Are you concerned that it appears that Alberta is now attracting more people than British Columbia?
Well, our population grew by about 300,000 people in just a couple of years. We're grappling with that in terms of schools, hospitals, infrastructure. Population growth is a significant issue for British Columbia. The reason why I believe we're seeing changes in population in British Columbia going forward is our immigration numbers have been reduced dramatically by the federal government. This has very serious consequences for us through our provincial nominee program. It means that we can't recruit the level of health workers we need, the entrepreneurs, the technical specialists that help us grow our economy to the level that we'd like to. So immigration will be one of the key issues we'll be raising with the Prime Minister around the Council of Federation table tomorrow.
And sorry, just to follow up on extortion, you mentioned you brought it up with the Prime Minister. Were there any concrete specific commitments that the Prime Minister made in order to be able to tackle this issue in BC?
Yes, there were two agreements that we reached together with our ministers. The first was that we'll be having a gathering. The national coordinator of this investigation from the RCMP will be bringing forward the chiefs of police from Manitoba, Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia, as well as national police together at Green Timbers in Surrey to ensure that there are no gaps in information sharing and that all resources required have been delivered to ensure these investigations are concluded with arrests and prosecutions. The second component of what we discussed is the Prime Minister committed, and as did his minister, that there would be an increase in RCMP resources for British Columbia on this file, which will enable us to have additional CFSEU or gang task force members participating in the overall effort in Surrey and south of the Fraser.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Hey, folks, we just wrapped up a great meeting. I want to thank the chair, Boyce Thompson of PEI, for doing a great job bringing us together. Canada's premiers are united around supporting this country to build up our economy, and Manitoba is bringing the Port of Churchill to the table. This supports the Arctic freedom that we've been pursuing with the territories and freedom from encroachment by other countries included. But it's also about driving Western Canadian economic growth, getting more goods to the European Union. You can get to India more quickly from Churchill than you can from the Port of Vancouver. So there's a lot of opportunities to grow our energy economy, and we've got a lot of great updates on the Churchill project we're looking to share with the Prime Minister tomorrow. So today was all about just strengthening those ties across the provinces and territories and heading in to the meeting with the Prime Minister tomorrow so we can strengthen Team Canada. So happy to take any questions if there are.
Bonjour,
Oui.
Mylène Crête du journal La Presse. J'aimerais savoir, qu'est-ce que vous pensez des propos de Doug Ford qui dit que l'élection du Parti québécois au Québec, se séparer du Canada, serait un désastre pour le pays?
Mais je suis toujours un Canadien fort, fier. Et puis, quand j'étais jeune, la question de la séparation de la souveraineté du Québec était un enjeu très, très important. Mais pour moi, je voudrais que les Québécois et Québécoises connaissent qu'il y a beaucoup de francophones tout partout dans le pays. Même chez nous, au Manitoba, il y a une francophonie très forte avec beaucoup de monde. Et le Canada, ça appartient à vous, les Québécois, les Québécoises. Il y a une place pour une nation de Québécois ici dans le Canada. tu pourrais venir chez nous au Manitoba et rencontrer des artistes, des écrivains très inspirants qui parlent, qui chantent, qui écrivent dans la langue française. Alors j'espère qu'on pourrait mieux engager avec les questions de comment est-ce qu'on pourrait renforcer le Canada avec le Québec inclus, au lieu d'engager avec ces questions de séparation.
Vous ne parlez pas de désastre si le Parti québécois était élu au pouvoir?
Bien, je travaillerai avec qui que ce soit que les Québécois choisissent pour être leur Premier ministre. Je voudrais remercier M. Legault pour son travail. C'était pendant les derniers deux ans et demi, c'était intéressant d'engager avec lui. Mais pour moi, le projet d'inclusion canadien, le projet d'engager avec les Québécois et Québécoises, ce n'est pas une question d'un parti ou un autre, d'une élection ou une autre. C'est une question de mieux partager la vérité francophone tout partout dans le Québec, ou dans le Canada, où le Québec est le centre, c'est la province la plus grande, mais il y a aussi une province il y a une présence dans les provinces atlantiques, dans l'Ontario, dans le Manitoba, dans l'Ouest. Chez nous, notre province était créée par M. Louis Riel. Dans son temps, le gouvernement fédéral a essayé de le tuer, ça a réussi à le tuer. À ce temps-là, c'était les Québécois qui ont donné leur appui au peuple métis, aux Manitobains, à M. Riel. Alors, il y a une longue histoire où les Québécois et puis les autres francophones dans le pays ont travaillé ensemble. J'espère que n'importe qui est élu dans cette élection pour le Québec va continuer ce travail pour mieux avancer le projet de la vérité de la francophonie au Canada.
Merci.
Oui, merci à toi.
Hi, Premier. Tessie Sanchi with the Hill Times. I'd like to focus on healthcare for my first question.
Yeah.
You're working with a new Liberal government under a new leader. Under the old Liberal government, you were able to get a pharmacare agreement. You signed Working Together and a whole bunch of other agreements. When it comes to healthcare under this new Liberal federal government, what would you like to see them help you with so that you can make it easier to deliver healthcare in your province?
Well, for the people of Manitoba, healthcare is the top priority. And we've been working hard to build more emergency rooms. We've hired 3,500 net new healthcare workers. That includes 1,200 nurses. We've even welcomed 13 American physicians to our province. So this is a huge priority. And at a time where we are thinking about trade with the United States, we're hearing whatever it is that the Trump administration is saying about our country on a given day, what greater Canadian value is there for us to lean into than universal public health care? The challenge about preserving that as a Canadian value is for health care to be something that we rally around the flag for. It needs to be accessible. Somebody needs to be able to show up at an emergency room and to be seen before too much time passes. And that's where we could really look for that continued collaboration with Prime Minister Carney and his government. Under his predecessor's administration, we were able to sign a new deal on health funding and with pharmacare, where we saw hormone replacement therapy coverage extended to women in Manitoba, which was great because of helping with menopause, but it's also smart for the public healthcare system because you're preventing future hip surgeries, as just one example for how that has lifelong benefits on the health side. And when we look ahead to the future, a good mix of investing together, both federal but also provincial resources on the prevention side so we can keep people healthy in the community, but also on the acute care side. So when you do need to go to the hospital, you do need to go to the emergency room, that you'd be able to get the care that you need. But if we're in a war of who's going to have the best tweets or truth social posts, I don't know how we're going to do on that. But if we can stand up and say we've got the best healthcare system in the world, and Canadians live longer than Americans because we have universal healthcare, I feel like that's a winning argument. The best part about it is it's true.
the promises in Budget 2025 was, we're going to build up the Arctic, we're going to make it more secure, we're going to do this in part through dual-use technologies. Yeah, has your team already started thinking about what you'd like to submit to the federal government? And when you're looking at dual use, how does it help the feds and how does it help you?
We think that the territories, Nunavut, Northwest Territories, Yukon, have such a powerful role to play in preserving Canadian freedom by reinforcing our presence in the Arctic. We have Canada's only rail line and port that has direct access to the Arctic. And so for us, building up Churchill is this huge economic opportunity to get our resources to Europe, to Asia, to South America, but to also enhance our presence in the Arctic. You know, when all the focus turned to Greenland a few weeks ago, and people started to think about, okay, well, what about the Canadian Arctic? Well, if stuff ever hit the fan, Churchill would be the only logistical supply point that we have to sustain Canadian jurisdiction and freedom in our Arctic. So if we want the Canadian nation to continue to be the true north, strong and free, the route runs through Churchill. And I will ride the polar bear myself to go build the next generation of port infrastructure because I think it's such a great investment for our economy.
Hi, Premier Canoe, Kyle Duggan from the Canadian Press. Thank you for taking our questions. Can you give us a sense of what the temperature's like in the room with the other premiers, and if you sorted out how you feel about the Mark Carney's deal with China and how things are coming together on the U.S. trade front with Kuzma renewal looming in the near future?
I think this was one of the most amicable and calm meetings that we've had since I've been at the Premier's table. And it really just revolves around that sense of unity. I think we've all had the opportunity to express ourselves over the past few weeks so we understand where each Premier is coming from, and there's a desire, you know, especially from myself and my prairie neighbors to say, we've made progress on canola, we want to see more progress on pork, but let's not leave the auto worker behind. And so I think as we sit down with Prime Minister Carney tomorrow, you'll see that sense of unity across the premiers. Of course, there's still going to be room for us to disagree, but the big picture, are we sticking together as a country? Are we going to support people in every region, every sector? The answer is yes.
And with respect to some of those disagreements, do you see any potential for movement? For example, there's a lot of attention right now on the Crown Royal issue between you and Doug Ford. Is there maybe any potential for resolution?
Yeah, I think so. Like you know, the people who work at the Crown Royal plant in Gimli, they're my boss, right? That's where I get my job from, is from them. So I'm going to go to bat for them. And I think we've done a lot to elevate that issue. Now I think, you know, Diageo, the parent company, should put in some work and, you know, provide that path forward for Mr. Ford, my friend Doug Ford. But at the end of the day, Doug and I, we're committed to Team Canada, and we're going to keep working together for the folks who work in the alcohol industry, for folks who work in the auto sector, ag, mining, energy, right across the board.
Hi, Premier. Nick Murray from CP. Thanks for taking our questions. I want to go back to the Port of Churchill for a moment and the notion to build the Arctic. In the budget, the government promised a $1 billion Arctic infrastructure fund. So I'm curious whether, in your discussions with the federal government, is it your view that the Port of Churchill project should be eligible for funding under that program?
Yeah, I think so. I would give the federal government credit for the collaboration we've had with their major projects office. So we have a charter for this Churchill Plus project that we've drafted, so meaning the provincial government and their major projects office. We've drafted a project charter together. You're going to see us go and test the market, see who the best potential proponent is to lead the next generation of infrastructure being built. And that contract is in the process of being awarded right now. A consultant is going to lead this process to find us a great proponent. And I think that the scale of the opportunity in Churchill is so big, like for sure, I think there's going to be multiple times that the federal government has the opportunity to invest. Same thing for us. So again, the funds that they've announced in Budget 2025 are going to be an important source. But this is something that we could be investing in and creating more opportunity for Canada through the next 50 years, next 100 years. So I think there's tons of more ways that we can work together.
Sure, and just to follow up on that, the three northern premiers met with Transport Minister Stephen McKinnon earlier today, and part of their pitch to him was that when we talk about the Arctic Infrastructure Fund, that projects under that should be funded in the Arctic. Of course, they're referring to their three territories. And so I'm wondering, are the lines getting blurred a little bit when we talk about the North in respect to projects that are situated in the North? Of course, Churchill, 59th parallel, not quite the 60th, but I'm just wondering, in your view, are those lines getting blurred a little bit?
No, I think we're going to work together. You know, like we've been there for Nunavut to say we're willing to set aside electricity to light up the North. When we're talking about resupply, we're talking about sending furniture or vehicles to Nunavut. We're using the Port of Churchill for that already. And so I think that there's an opportunity to only do more of that in the future. I just think that we have to be cognizant of where we are today. Fully support projects in Nunavut like Grays Bay and other things like that. But if we want to build Grays Bay, how are you going to get the materials there?
From Bay Cockle, potentially?
Potentially from, you know, the Port of Churchill, right? And using the rail line that feeds it. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to work together.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Premier Camille. I'm Lisa Mayer from CBC National News. Back to the dispute with Doug Ford that you've got. How do you maintain a public-facing Team Canada approach when you're faced with these, Trump tariffs and trying to hold that line against the U.S. while you're in a public dispute with another premier?
Well, I know that Doug is somebody who, speaks from the heart. So am I. And so we have the ability to keep working together. Because at the end of the day, the Crown Royal issue, it's important for a community like Gimli, Manitoba. And we have to be able to ensure that the ag sector, the energy sector, the mining sector are having their needs looked at as well too. And we're Canadians. Canadians can go into the corner, get the elbows up, body check each other, and then go for a beer after the hockey game. So I think Premier Ford and I will be just fine in terms of being on different sides of the Crown Royal conversation, but still making sure that as we move agriculture and mining and energy forward, we're not forgetting to bring the auto worker along with us.
Your province is also caught kind of in the middle of the China deal and the U.S. tariffs that Trump has threatened now. You asked for a bit of an off-ramp with the China deal on pork. I know the pork stuff didn't come through when the PM was in China. Are you willing to make any sacrifices for your province with any of those deals with China if an actual Trump tariff was on the table?
Like what the president says on a given day is so unpredictable. I think if any of us tried to go to the betting market on these hypotheticals, we go broke. So what I would say is that we have already been feeling real economic impacts from the tariffs on canola, from the tariffs on pork. You can measure them for the farmer in the field, or you can measure them in the factory in terms of the missed opportunity to export. So to see a little bit of progress on the canola side, to see maybe the opportunity to have more happen on pork is great. But yeah, it's complicated because we need to preserve access to the biggest market in the world. And I guess that's why we're here, is to sort out that very, very complicated situation that we're all in. But when you're talking about going up against the U.S., you're talking about going up against China, and we're a country of 40 million people here in Canada, right? Like the only way that we have a chance is if we stick together. And so that's why that unity and that's why that commitment to every region of the country at the premier's level is really, really important, because I think each of us as premiers recognizes that, okay, maybe I don't have a huge amount of the auto sector in my region, but I still need to support that worker, because if I'm standing up for them in their time of need, then I know that their leadership is going to stand up for us during our time.
Do you have time just for one more?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. I just want to go back to the image that you painted earlier about if stuff hits the fan and how Churchill can help serve the North in that respect.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about, like, if stuff does hit the fan, how do you foresee like those shipping lanes that go up through the St. Lawrence being impacted?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of scenario planning, maybe to say euphemistically, about what could happen. Like, part of this is about helping America too. You know what I mean? What happens if there was like some hugely challenging moment the United States went through in the future? Having another logistical path to getting to Tidewater is helpful for all of North America. So again, part of it is about being able to defend our freedom in the Arctic. But part of it is just about being able to have a diversified supply chain, which I think post-COVID, post 1 year of Trump 2.0, I think everybody's very interested in.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate
Yeah, no, thank you.
Good afternoon. Today's meetings with the Council of the Federation confirmed for me the importance of getting together as a federation, sharing experiences and priorities, and increasing our opportunities to work as a team, as was demonstrated earlier today between Premier Doug Ford and I, and the work that we're doing with the Port of St. John to increase Ontario's opportunities to access markets abroad, as did our conversations today on the importance of things like energy connections. When we have moments of unreliability with our neighboring provinces, we need to be able to help each other out, as New Brunswick did for our neighbors in PEI and Nova Scotia over the past weekend, and the importance of developing those connections, the infrastructure, the energy generation that we're going to share, make these meetings really important as places to discuss that. Another important discussion we had today was on defense. And how important Canada's role in the world is right now, how we're investing in our capacity as a country to strengthen our sovereignty, and New Brunswick's role as a leader in cyber defense and as where Canada's military is made. We have a lot of partnerships and relationships with many of our neighboring provinces in the supply chain and in some of the research that supports that work. So all that to say, this time with the Council of the Federation under the new leadership of Premier Blois Thompson was productive and highlights the need for all of Canada to come together in this moment as we turn to face new partners and a new global reality, as we leverage each other and cooperate and collaborate between provinces to strengthen this country and set ourselves up for prosperity going forward. Aujourd'hui, pour nous autres, c'était vraiment clair l'importance de la fédération et du conseil de travail qu'on fait ensemble. On a vu particulièrement avec des conversations au sujet d'infrastructures pour l'énergie, l'importance des partenariats, des connexions entre nos provinces, particulièrement à un temps où tout le monde cherche de l'énergie. Nous autres, au Nouveau-Brunswick, avons l'opportunité de supporter nos voisins durant la fin de semaine quand ils n'avons pas assez d'électricité, mais ça démontre le besoin de la fédération et de nos relations entre provinces pour supporter, un petit peu comme a été démontré aujourd'hui avec le partenariat entre l'Ontario et le Nouveau-Brunswick, pour que notre port à Saint-Jean peut aider aux entrepreneurs d'Ontario d'avoir accès aux nouveaux marchés en Europe et d'autres places à cause d'un partenariat et de connexions, d'échanges autour de le pays. On a parlé aussi de l'importance dans le secteur de défense de notre collaboration entre les provinces et de façon nationale à un moment où notre capacité de défendre notre souveraineté n'avait jamais été plus importante. Le Nouveau-Brunswick est un leader dans la défense en cybersécurité, puis aussi dans la formation du militaire du Canada. Le militaire est formé en Nouveau-Brunswick. Et nous faisons ce travail avec des partenariats de recherche, de chaînes d'approvisionnement avec nos voisins et plusieurs provinces autour du Canada. Alors, être ensemble comme une fédération, partager, trouver des opportunités pour la collaboration, c'est vraiment important et la valeur est claire dans un moment où le Canada doit être uni, peut utiliser la force de nos provinces et nos territoires en partenariat pour prendre notre place d'une façon globale dans l'économie du moment. Merci beaucoup.
Hi, Premier. Tessie Sanchez with the Hill Times. I want to follow up on a question I asked you earlier this morning about pharmacare. You had said you're interested in pharmacare, but you want the federal government to recognize your unique needs. Can you expand on that? What exactly are the obstacles right now?
Well, it gets pretty technical in terms of the formulary that's currently covered and funded in New Brunswick for patients, and that some of the things we cover today are not included on the federal government's formulary, which would mean we'd see patients using particular drugs, things like Ozempic and others that are quite commonly used, that will no longer have coverage access, and wanting to get into the negotiation of the details of what is covered by whom and how. and not seeing a lot of flexibility with the government right now. It feels like a bit of a take it or leave it deal, and we're trying to identify the ways that it can best serve New Brunswickers.
So it's not possible to have like Ozempic on the provincial formulary and then just take whatever the federal government.
That's what we're getting, is there's it's an adopt it and implement it or not.
Just a quick second question. On overall healthcare, you now have a new Prime Minister with a new approach, and under the Trudeau government there were a lot of bilateral deals on individual subjects, and that was how the Trudeau government said they were going to help you with healthcare. Going forward, what would you like to see from this current federal government to help you support delivery of healthcare?
Well, we'd love to see some more detail and clarity on the health infrastructure funding that they've stated will be available, but we also very much support the development of unique relationships with provinces, because New Brunswick is unique in Canada. There is no other province like us. Il n'y a pas une autre province bilingue au Canada, but we also have a different reality in terms of our urban and rural demographic and how our population is spread out, and a different reality in terms of our health profile. So we don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach on policies like healthcare or immigration or otherwise. We are looking to advance right now a nation-leading contract with our healthcare professionals, just signed in November of last year, that makes New Brunswick the most attractive place for healthcare professionals in the country. And we're doing something different on our collaborative care model with our primary care physicians and our nurse practitioners, and we need to develop the kind of matching relationship with the federal government that responds to the unique, modern, and sort of first of its kind approach to delivering primary care that New Brunswick has developed. And so we want to be able to make sure that we have the right tools in place, and with the support of the federal government, that match our ambition as well as our service model in New Brunswick.
Hi, Premier. Kyle Duggan from the Canadian Press. I'm just looking to get a sense of what you and the other premiers are hoping to get out of your meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney tomorrow. Sounds like it was a pretty positive meeting today, and you're all on the same page on a number of areas. So could you give us a sense of what it is you're hoping to get out of that?
There's a couple things that we really want to see that are building on how this past year has gone, really. We've seen the impact of Team Canada when everybody comes together and is unified in their focus and is collaborating with the same goal. And now that we're a year in, the stakes are higher than ever. When we go out into the world, we have to go out as a united Canada, with provinces engaging with countries all over the world, as we look at critical mineral deals and other things. We want to do that in a unified way, and as we negotiate a new CUSMA that has implications between canola and softwood lumber and pork and automobiles, that we have to do so together, because our best position for Canada to win is unified. And so the impression we want to make on the federal government is how impactful their regular communication and collaboration with us is, how no surprises for anyone is a great goal to aim for. We want to see regular meetings and lots of continued back and forth dialogue where we can make sure that that local input, the unique realities of each of our provinces, are informing end solutions, trade offers that we put together, decisions on strategy of who to ally with and for what, that kind of thing. So we really want to start off with the emphasis of, we want every sector to thrive. We want every province to thrive. We don't want gains to be at the expense of others, and to do that we need to be together, sharing information, talking regularly, and finding those points of cooperation and collaboration that'll put Canada in its strongest position.
I also wanted to follow up on a question I had asked earlier at the earlier news conference. There's a 25% tariff on windmills, on imports of wind towers, and I'm curious if you think that will affect the province, or if that's not an issue you're concerned with.
I noticed that you had asked that, and Doug answered, and we were trying to move through the line quickly. Was it Hal or Cal? Kyle, sorry.
That's okay.
So yes, it does affect New Brunswick, actually, because we've been provisioning a lot of wind power, at least through REOIs, and have granted megawatts to multiple projects in partnership with First Nations in our province. And many of those bids in to get those megawatts included then purchase plans for windmill parts, some of which have already been purchased. And so the grandfathering in of purchases that have already happened was appreciated when they made that amendment to the policy. But New Brunswick is keen to buy Canadian steel and to see it deployed in our province. I know many of my neighboring provinces, I think of Newfoundland or BC, have different transportation realities, and the ability to access those products is maybe a little trickier when you're on the rock or when you're on the other side of the country. But for us, we want to buy Canadian steel, and we want that deployed in New Brunswick's wind fleet, but we appreciate that they grandfathered purchases that were already made that might not have been Canadian product.
Hi, Premier. Lisa Mayer with CB National News. With the Port of St. John announcement today, one of the things that President Trump mentioned in his threatening of 100% tariffs was that Canada could be a drop-off point for China. Are you worried that you could be painting a target on your back by announcing this big port and that could be a reality?
Well, with the Port of St. John, the growth that we've seen there has been, particularly in doing business with Ontario, growth of 600% over the past 5 years. This isn't something that's happened overnight. And in partnership with DP World, who's the organizer of the port, we have been adding new trade destinations in Europe, in Central and Southern America, and in some places in Asia as well. Because there's a lot of inputs that we do get from elsewhere that then Canada uses our smarts and our capacity to transform into a higher value product and sell to ourselves, to the US, or to other places. And then a lot of what Ontario is doing right now is actually using the Port of St. John as an export point to get their goods and services into more markets, including China. We'd love for China to buy more Canada, but we appreciate the concern about, does this mean that China is going to then attempt to dump in Canada, like we've seen happen through Mexico, and that's been a concern. The good news is we have excellent partners. We have really strong relationships with places that we're targeting as sources of export, and we watch our inputs pretty closely to make sure that we're keeping our allies close and building those international dynamics, that variable geometry that Carney describes, that we're doing that really thoughtfully and picking those partners carefully.
Your province is one of the first to see the impacts of ICE agents at the border with Maine. How worried are you, and what are you hearing from people who cross that border every day for work, for any other reasons they might be going? And yeah, what are you hearing on the ground about ICE agents there?
Yeah, New Brunswick's relationship with Maine has really changed over the last year. You can see it in the data, actually. 670,000 fewer vehicles went from New Brunswick into Maine. That's a huge drop. And so New Brunswickers have been feeling uncomfortable for a while about the changes we're seeing in our neighbors. And then we all watched in horror the news out of Minnesota, now a number of times over. So then to hear that ICE is in Maine, which is our closest neighbor, we share a massive border with Maine, it provides a lot of unrest. People feel afraid, and we know New Brunswickers are choosing not to go to the US anymore. Thankfully, we are a beautiful province that has lots to offer them and can supply the kind of goods and food and energy products and other things that they need, so that isn't a necessity, with the exception of the amazing community of Campobello, that is an island that must access the U.S. in order to get access back into their home country and province. And so it's something that's worrisome to all of us, and it reinforces why we need to do business with each other, why we need to position ourselves in the Port of St. John for greater trade with other places, and why we need to invest in things like our defense capacity and our sovereignty. So, Adam, thank you. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you.